So, hello and welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Binary Beats. I'm your host River Wild, and today's guest is Ziggi Battles. Ziggi is a singer-songwriter from Glasgow, Paisley.
That's correct, yes.
And he works in the Scottish nightlife scene, performing as a drag artist and running his own nights called Eccentrix and various other club nights that run through places like Bonjour and other queer venues. Mm-hmm. Do you just want to give yourself a wee introduction? Tell us about yourself. Okay. Who's Ziggi Battles?
So Ziggi Battles is me. It's my actual name, which is good. It's my legal name. I am a dad. I have a 5-year-old daughter, and I've been a working musician for the last 11 years, believe it or not. Mm-hmm. I'm older than I look, and I never give my age away, but I give many clues to what age I am. I like the mystery. But 11 years I've been gigging. I started off as a drummer. That was my into the music industry, and toured Britain with many bands, and in more recent years started writing my own material. Probably started writing my own material about 6-7 years ago, but I never did anything with it or let anyone hear it. I think it's your knowledge as well. I've always had pretty small circles and always thought if I put it out there, someone's going to steal it, mm-hmm. as if. But that's what you think. You don't know how, and copyright's a hard thing to understand. But in the more recent years, I've put things out there and things like that. So.
Yep. So I've seen recently you've released a new song, your most recent song, Man Like Me.
Yes.
That's your most recent?
It's my most recent proper release. Yeah. The rest are songs I've played around with other people's lyrics to make political statements. But as in more probably poignant parodies, maybe you could call it. I think that's the joy of music though, you know, like has been able to take like political standpoints or really controversial or uncomfortable conversations and change them into something that can unite people and create something beautiful. But my own authentic song, which is mine, is Man Like Me, and I released that 24th of June last year. Mm-hmm. That's still new, I guess, in the world of time. But I've had plenty of people sending me little pictures of it playing in their car, which is cute.
That's amazing. That must make you feel amazing as well.
It does, yeah. I think it's a song that it speaks to a lot of people, not just. So I'm a trans man, and for me, the song is about mostly coming out to myself as opposed to coming out to the world. I think it's the biggest step that you take, mm-hmm. is having a conversation with yourself about who you are, and understanding your own pronouns and things like that, and then coming out to the world. And I think it's a song that a lot of people can relate to, not just trans men, you know, anyone who's queer, anyone who's mm-hmm. gay, anyone who's had to come out, but it's that stand in front of yourself in the mirror. I think I spent a lot of time trying to find peace within relationships with other people, and feeling like I had to find the right man to make me feel better about myself, or good, or feel loved. But the lyrics, if you listen to it, sort of go into, like, I never thought that I would find my own identity. And then it's like when I close my eyes, I think all I can see is the man that I am. Mm-hmm. And then you set yourself free, and I'm a man like me. So yeah, it's a powerful song, but it's also a banger. Like, calm down. Stop crying about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's make people cry and dance at the same time. It's a funny look.
That's the joy of music though. That's what I'm saying. Like, it is the absolute joy of music. Like, things that people, a lot of the time with artists like yourself as well, like they can be going through like a change of identity, or they can go through a struggle with their identity, or even just simple things like a breakup or anything like that, and they can take these really like hard moments in their life and make something like joyous.
Oh, like, yeah, definitely.
And make an absolute banger that people just want to like rip the floor up to, you know.
I think I'm inspired by some songs that I have done covers of before. I did a Young Hearts Run Free. I did a cover of that a few years ago, and it was played on BBC Radio 4. And that was great. But when I heard it the first time, it was like on the radio. Well, not the first time, sorry. When I really listened, there's a difference between hearing a song and listening to a song, in my opinion. And the first time I listened to it properly, the lyrics, was just after a really bad breakup with a very abusive person that went to jail and things like that. That's a terrible time in my life. I remember listening to the song and thinking, those lyrics are deep. You know, you just like, all you hear originally is like, what's the sense in sharing this one and only life? And you're like, oh, dance floor. But when you sit and listen to it, you're like, wow. Like the 70s had a lot of floor fillers, but they were really wordy and actually really heartbreaking. So I'm like, I'm going to take this song and I'm going to make everyone cry about it, stripped it right down, and only at the end does the beat come in. And I was inspired by that type of thing where you can get up on the dance floor and enjoy, you know, make a room full of people enjoy a song, but there'll be one or two people in the audience or in the room that day who goes, wow, that song's speaking to me. And that's what that song did for me at the time. So Man Like Me is kind of the same, where it's like, oh, this is a beat, you know, get up and dance, but there'll be somebody listening going, wow, this song's really got me. And I think that's a really good thing, in my opinion, to do. Before if it was a sad song, it's going to sound like a sad song, you know. If it's a happy song, it's going to sound like a happy song. And I like to play about with that. You know, it sounds happy, but it's actually like, it's miserable, oh my goodness.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think...
Play with emotions.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, like, that's really, again, like what music's all about. Like, you get artists, like people like really big artists like Robin and things like that have took obviously really heartbreaking moments in their life and made absolutely massive queer bangers out of them, you know. Like, there's not a night that you go to, like, say, like in a commercial gay venue, like, that they don't play something like from Robin or something like that. And that was obviously like a period of life that they went through, a period of time they went through where they were probably heartbroken, and now it's like sung back to them at massive festivals, or at like it fills the dance floor in clubs every single weekend, and it must be such a joyous experience to change something from a really sad period of your life to something
powerful,
really powerful and substantial, you know, and makes change, you know.
I think like one of my regrets, I would say, in the last couple of years is, I think maybe I'd say probably more for people who are struggling with their gender. You go through like you want to banish your past, and I've really changed that narrative. Like, well, no, I know who I am. I don't like to say who I was, because it's not really about was. It was probably only a period of time where I really was being someone else, but it was probably very influenced by the person I was with, because I've always been a people pleaser and very easily manipulated. But a lot of the music that I had released that was on Spotify, I'd taken off because I didn't feel it fitted the narrative of who I was, who I am today. And I kind of regret that, because it's sort of denying who I was referring to at the time as myself, because your pronouns have changed, and I didn't have the narrative for me to understand who I was when I wrote those songs, but they were just simply songs, and they were good songs, but I'm like, no, can't have that. Who's she? Who is she? And I'm like, no. Whereas now I'm like, well, I have more respect for that girl that got me through and made me strong enough to be he today. And I think I feel bad for not honouring that, but I think I do it more now by speaking more freely. And yeah, I think maybe it's trolls on the internet as well, where you're like, yeah, you can throw as many pictures of old me as you want. I know who I was. It's not like, oh, I can't look at that person with long hair. Oh my goodness.
Does that happen to you? Do people do things like that?
Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes it can be, you know, people will try and troll you with your own past, as if it was something, you know, like, how dare you? You
as if you're running from it, you're ashamed of it.
You were pregnant crazy, at one point. I'm like, I know, it's amazing how many dads get to carry their own baby and throw it back in their face with like positivity. But when it first comes to you, you're like, oh my goodness, I should be devastated. I'm like, nah. Yeah, no, I carried my baby. It was great. I had a human inside me. It felt amazing. And I breastfed before I got them cut off. So yeah, you know, you have to, you can look at it in a really negative way, or look at it in a yeah, I've experienced lots of different things in life, and I have probably, since having top surgery as well, I've become a lot more comfortable, and my journey is growing. I know how my voice sounds. I'm quite aware of how my face looks, you know, and I get a lot of people will try and have an argument with me about what gender I look, and I got such a strange concept because there's so many cis guys that look feminine. There's so many cis women that, well, I'd say they look pretty butch to me. Like, you know, I'm like, don't argue with me about my face. And yeah, you go and get like face masculization, and I'm going, but for who's that for? Is that for you or is that for me?
Yeah, it's for
is it so I can walk by someone in the street and somebody doesn't go, there you go, doll? And yeah, that's hard. It's hard every day, in and out. But also, I've come to know this face. It's my face, and yeah, I can sometimes. It's the biggest thing I had I think it was last week, and I was pretty mad with it on codeine after my operation. So yeah, I had. So any listeners, I've had top surgery twice, which is joyous. But it's really just revision surgery. But because it was such a big undertaking the second time as well, it really did feel like I've had top surgery twice. But yeah, I was recovering, and I just got a comment on the social media platform saying still a woman. Or still a female, I think it was. And my point that I was trying to make is I think it's so weird, the word still, because as a child I was bullied so much for looking like a boy, or acting like a boy, or dressing like a boy, or having boys' haircuts. And then as a teenage person, I didn't know what non-binary was, but looking back, that's very much how I was. I always have been androgynous. Because I was just me. I used to always say I don't want a label, I'm just myself. Yeah. And that was nothing to do with being queer, it was more to do with people going, oh right, you're goth. I'm like, yes, look at this, God. Because my hair because I wasn't bleached blonde and had like fake tan on or something like that, so I must be a goth, yeah. And yeah, it was a very strange upbringing of people being around me and yeah, just putting you down, but it comes water off a duck's back after so many years of it. And the point I'm making is, for so many years, people would go on about, you look like a boy, you act like a boy. You know, when I was busking in the street, once somebody came up to me to see if I was a boy or a girl, and I don't think they ever got the answer. I was standing playing, and I'm like, expecting a wee pound in my guitar bag, and I'm like, just coming to see if you're a boy or a girl. I'm like, thank you very much. How kind. And I thought that was insane. So to then live your truth and be the boy that you've all been telling me I am, it's like, no, you're still a female. I'm like, hang on a minute. Well, you'll never please you. So I realise that society will never be happy. If I tell you what I am, you're going to tell me I'm the opposite. Because if I start walking about now saying, no, I'm a big girl, you're going to you look a bit like a boy. I'm like, very funny, isn't it? So I just accept I'm just sitting here on the big androgynous boat, and we'll continue making lovely songs to make other people feel safe and heard and seen, because I think the biggest message I want to make is, don't ever change yourself for other people, only do it for you, you know. And don't let other people stop you from changing you if it's going to make you happy. I think people change themselves all the time, or edit themselves. Yeah, we always go away, Photoshop ourselves in real life and media life to make ourselves feel better. You know, we all do it. We take a picture and go, there's a wee line there, or there's a spot there, and the world makes it so easy to edit that out. And
quite scary though, isn't it?
It is. I think everyone's got white teeth and no spots and lines. I look at myself in the mirror and go, fuck.
I know. I was thinking that this morning when I was driving up, like, I was thinking I've got this huge spot here. And
it's all I've seen all day. It's all I've seen. I can't see anything else. No, it's just thinking, but we're so critical on ourselves, but it is hard. Crazy, and sometimes you have to look at things and think, right, that can't be real, even though it's been done very well. But I always try and put the most honest images of myself out there. And I have, anytime I've worked with photographers, I've always said, please don't over edit. And I think I do it more for me than I do for anyone else. Because I always try and envisage an older version of myself. And I want to have, like, when I look back at, you know, your grand's pictures or whatever, not your grand's pictures, that was you know, you look back at older pictures and you think, oh, that's amazing, they weren't photoshopped. And I want that. I want, when I'm older, to look back and go, that's how I look, not like, well, that's kind of how I look, but that's a dog filter on there, you know what I mean? So yeah, I like to have be authentic as possible. says the drag artist.
So that kind of lets me put a wee segue into, like, for any listeners that do go on to look at Ziggy's page, you'll notice that, like, your makeup skills are just, like, second to none. I have never seen anybody, like, and I've seen you, obviously, I've came to lots of your gigs. I was actually at the last Eccentrix gig that was in Bonjour.
Oh yes, thank you.
It was really, really good. I caught the tail end of it because I was at a gig in the Barrowlands, and then we came
It was a good show, I must say. The two people up from London.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, that was probably, that's going to be hard to match that, I must say. I always get scared actually after a good show, because I'm like, right, now, not like I'm criticising anybody, but I'm like, oh no, how can I do this?
Nah, you always top it. Like, every time I've seen you, every time I come and see you, whether it had been in, like, let's say the Riding Rooms, or even in Bonjour, anywhere I've seen you, every time I see you, you've evolved into something else that is just, like,
oh, thank you,
above and beyond what you've done before. I remember one time I seen you in, I think it was in the Riding Rooms, and you were performing, but you were performing, like, I think it was your own songs, and you were performing, like, 50s songs.
Yeah.
And it was, but you uniquely look like yourself, like Ziggy.
Oh, that's
but
good. But
also,
also,
on top of that, it was like an essence of Elvis in there as well. It was like, I knew that there was a bit. Yeah,
sorry, I can't
there was an essence of Elvis there that reminded me of Elvis, but you're just uniquely yourself in it, and I thought that was just an amazing thing to be able to achieve, you know.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I don't describe myself as any gendered title when it comes to drag. I think because I spend my weekly days just trying to, well, I don't try and pass as a man. Like, it's very hard. Like, I just am a man like me. That's what I always try and say, as opposed to, I'm not trying to pass as you. I'm not trying to pass as my dad. I'm just trying to pass as me.
Just are you. Yeah.
And so when it comes to drag, I think it's just a time to have fun and not think about it. So I used to, when I first started drag, it was like, I'm a drag king. And I really wasn't comfortable with the title after a while. I think when I seen the overwhelming sort of label of what that was, where it was, I think a lot of people thought, well, that means you're a woman dressing up as a man. I'm like, right, well, I'm not happy with that. Or there just was a massive, like, I just don't like fitting in. I think I've spent so many years not fitting in, that now I'm like, oh no, I don't want to fit in here. This is terrible. So there was a lot of trans men, trans masc people, lesbian community as well, and they're dressing up as men. That's how it's portrayed. Or, in my opinion, a lot of the time making a mockery of men, and I really don't like that. I don't like anybody taking it. It's the same as if it's drag queens making a mockery of women. I don't think it's very funny. I don't think it's positive. So I don't enjoy it when it's the other way. We're like, oh, but we were just laughing at toxic masculinity. I'm like, well, that's not my scene. I'm not into that, because I don't think it makes it better. I think addressing it in a different way would be easier. Anyway, I'm such a grump. But yeah, it's things like that made me steer away from being labelled as a drag king, though nobody has ever listened. I will still get introduced as the king of it, because I am the king. I'm not a drag king, you know what I mean? It's a difference. And obviously I'm not good to fit into the narrative of being a drag queen, but I'll put a wig on sometimes. I can wear a dress. Clothes aren't gendered. Do I need to say it again? And
it's performance.
It's clothes. It depends what I'm going to do this night. If I'm going to come out and do some like 1950s Brenda Lee, and I'm going to wear a dress, and that suits that. If I'm going to do an Elvis song, then I want to be able to. You can't gyrate your hips in the same way with a cheeky little dress on. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's. I'm just a drag artist. I'm an artist, and I apply makeup to my face, and I'll make it up on the spot. I generally, like, my routine for a show is panicking, removing all the clothes from all my drawers and wardrobes, there's multiple, and going, I have nothing. There's nothing here. Look at this. I can't wear that, or I'm too fat. And I don't think I've actually ever been fat, but I'll still address it. It doesn't matter how small I get. I'm always like, no, that doesn't fit. Look at that. Look at that. So self-critical. And eventually I put it on. I'm like, look at you. All of a sudden I'm like, oh yeah, here we are. And
outfits are giving. Like,
it takes a long time. I never prepare. I think people have they plan their outfit, and I'm like, no, it's within the 24-hour bracket, but usually in the last 2-hour bracket, and it's just a case of like, what am I going to wear? I think it's because I struggle with my day-to-day clothes sometimes, because you spend a lot of time on stage that I don't know what to wear to Tesco. You know, like how do I just throw something on? I don't know how to throw something on because I will. And then I always think, well, what if I meet somebody and that's going to be awful? And then if I do meet somebody and I'm not dressed like, you know, amazing enough, then I always apologise and go, I'm sorry, I'm only just wearing this 'cause I'm only going to Tesco. As if like I need to, I
know you
for
should
a
be
person
in full
who's
performance gear at all times.
For somebody who's wrote, I'm going to take this out, I've got a good feeling that this is going to annoy everyone. It's a little what's that called?
It's cute though.
Ring pull?
Yeah.
No one calls it ring pull.
Cap,
it's a can thing.
Cap, yeah.
and I sprayed it yellow and I know it's rattling and I know that's
So you
annoying.
made that yourself as well? To match your,
made
rings?
Made this.
I know, but
what I mean is I stole it from a can and thought, oh, you'll do. Yeah, I just sprayed it. Not to go with the outfit, I just found it and thought that will go. And
I like it matches your ring, so yeah.
Yeah, and that's I like the Halloween palette. I think like yellow, black, orange, and purple are a good palette. But I won't be wearing that tomorrow. You know what I mean? That was today's outfit. I think I like you said, always undeniably Ziggy, but never the same is my brand. That's what I was trying to get to.
Forever evolving, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like
definitely.
A lot of drag artists have a brand, like that's their look. Whether it's kings, queens or things, I've seen a lot of people comparing, this is what I looked like 5 years ago and now, and I'm like, well, it's the same thing, but just better. Yeah. Whereas I've got maybe a couple of different face shapes I go for, but every now and again I'll just go for something completely different. A lot of the time I hate it, and then other people love it, and I go, well, that's art though, isn't it? There's lots of paintings I've done. So I'm a portrait painter as well, and I'm a sculpt. I do everything. You know, like we've not got enough time to go. I do the gardening as well. You know, I'm a great chef. It's you know, I'm Dr. Daddy as well when the cuts come. Come on, baby. So yeah, like it's endless talents over here, right? I swear. But when it comes to drag, it's more just whatever I come up with. I think I've spent a lot of time. I paint. I like to paint things on wood as well. I like the textures. I like challenging things. I paint clothes. I paint a lot of my clothes. But yeah, trying to sell things can be really, really hard. So it's easier to sell it if it's there on your face. And I think it's the joy of it being temporary. It's only going to be here for a few hours and then it's gone. And I quite like that. It's not so much, I think the word getting bored easily is probably wrong because I don't think boredom is the emotion I feel. But I get inspired by something else too quickly that I need to move on. I need to keep refreshing. And yes, I know it's very David Bowie of me, but to be given this name at such a young age, Ziggy, and having my mum be a Bowie fan, it's hard to not be influenced by somebody who literally evolves. And my mum was very like that. Growing up, not as rapidly, but she would go through different fashions, different looks. And I think I was very inspired by, you don't have to be, and there's people that I grew up with that literally look the same, just older now. And I'm like, I'd be bored. Yeah. Man, look at that.
Like, I'm the same.
You've had that fringe for 25 years, what?
Like, people will say to me quite a lot, like through the past, at least the past 10 years anyway, like the different stages, they're like, if they look through my social media, they look through like my old Facebook pictures. I've deleted them all now because they're actually so cringe, but like they'd look through them and I went through, everybody's like that, you're such a different person for what you look like even just 3 years ago. And I'm like, I know, like, I mean, at one point I like moved really into a feminine side of my life and I really fully adopted my femininity and I grew my hair out. I had really long hair down to here.
Really? Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and I only wore like female clothing and like sometimes people would mistake me for a female and I mean I was...
And did that feel good?
Yeah, absolutely fine with that. I was like, I'm somebody, it's through my years, I don't define myself to one gender. I wouldn't class myself as non-binary, but I don't really know. I don't really define it. I just allow it to be. And I think
that's okay as well.
What it is, yeah. I just go with whatever my body's telling me to do, whatever I'm feeling internally. I just move into that space. And if one day I want to wear girls' clothes, I'll wear girls' clothes. If one day I want to wear boys, I'll wear boys.
How dare you?
You know, and it's so I had a really feminine period of life, and at that point I went through and I was like into makeup, shaved my eyebrows off, like
as we do. Like, we all have moments.
Yeah, we all have the crazy moments where we shave our eyebrows off, and it never looks good for anybody, you know, unless you're a serious makeup artist and you can pull it off. But I wasn't. So, but it was kind of gothy as well, you know. Wore all black all the time, no eyebrows, long hair. It was just
I love that
crazy period of my life, but. It's funny, like when people look back, they go to me like, your social media, like it's like 6 different people through time, and I'm like, I know. Even when I look back, I sometimes don't even recognise the person anymore.
I get that.
Like I'm like, that mindset I was in then 3 years ago is I've shifted so far, and I think that like moves into what we were speaking about there, but constantly evolving. I think that's the whole purpose of human like experience, is like,
I think it should
not allowing yourself to just be stuck in this, right, this is what I should look like, this is the way I should act, and I should just stick to these set rules for the rest of my life. I just don't feel like you learn, or you don't experience, or you don't evolve as a human, you know?
Yeah.
If we're going to evolve as a society, we need to allow ourselves to evolve internally.
Yeah,
you know?
I think we should start with accepting that we're all diverse. Like literally every single person is different. And if we accept that, it's easier to accept people like us, that there is fluidity in our clothes, in our gender, and our feelings, because that's okay. There's a lot of people that I do know who are the opposite, where, as I said, they've remained basically the same person for as long as I've ever known them. And I suspect they probably always will. But they'll have good times and bad times, and they're relative to them. Whereas, I can't speak for you, but, you know, if I've had good times and bad times, that might then come out in what I'm wearing, or my clothes, or music even, like we were talking about. So I express my emotions differently, whereas other people might just be like, I'm just really low at the moment, yet they'll still have, they just look at the same, whereas I'm like, what can I do with this emotion?
Yeah.
Which, it sounds very hippy-dippy, but yeah, that's how I deal with it. And sometimes I don't, sometimes I might just want to go to bed. But, you know, having a 5-year-old removes that ability. I'm like, okay, which is great. I always say she's the saviour, because in a way she stops me from ever getting to the lowest that I've been before, because I can't. That's me. That's my responsibility. I need to be at least here. If I can't be there, at least be there. But that's why I'm saying I can still express my emotions in different ways. But yeah, I think there's also, as far as gender, and I know how I'll look to some people, but I think it's a lot to do with who you are in yourself. I think if you can become your own best friend, and we can fall out with ourselves a lot, I criticise myself more than anyone could ever criticise me. But if I've came to a place where I know who I am, and I'm happy with that, and I'm happy to appear as a different person from day to day. And I think finding peace as a transgender person, and a very androgynous transgender person, it's a massive scale, and I will not speak for other trans people they want to be the opposite of what they were assigned at the birth, and that's it, hyper masculine, hyper feminine. And I know that I'll never be it either, but I don't want somebody else to tell me I'm non-binary. I'm like, well, no, I'm a trans man. I just don't need to look like what you think that trans man looks like. Like, why can't a trans woman have short spiky hair and jeans on? Does that mean that she's still a man? No, she's a trans woman. She just doesn't want to wear a skirt. I think there's a lot of pressure that, well, I'm going to be I'm 6'7" as it is, so what's going to happen to wear heels? I'm like, well, don't wear heels then. If you want to wear nobody said you must wear heels. You're a woman now. But yeah, it's the image you have of yourself in your head, and being comfortable with that, because I probably will never please the public, because I never have. And it's So yeah, like how you've been viewed, all those 6 different versions of yourself, as long as you remain you in all of that, then it's all good. Yeah.
That was really nice. What was it like that?
Yeah.
Remain yourself all the way through it. I think that was really powerful. But just to kind of segue back into like where we started that conversation, because me and you were clearly like, 10 different tangents at one time. Like my mind.
Yeah, what is it we're here for again? Yeah. We're talking about anything. This spicy tea. I know.
I mean, I'm not diagnosed ADHD, but I'm definitely do have ADHD. My concentration span on like keeping one line of thought, one train of thought.
One train.
Yeah, one train. Yeah, one train of thought like is just non-existent for me, you know. Like I delve into if I'm telling you a story, I'll tell you the entire background of the story before I paint.
Yeah, no, you need the full context. Yeah. I'm not just telling you like why we're here. Why am I having this conversation?
People do. Some people just tell you straight. They just
I hate when
one sentence, and I'm like that. No.
It's when people talk to me and are like, so, and I'm like, don't do that. I know you want me to hurry up, and the more you do that, I'm going to just be annoyed. So now I'm going to tell you more that you didn't need to know, because you want me to. No, you're going to be here. We're going to talk about everything, okay?
Yeah.
No, I'm diagnosed autism. There was recently a a something put out. I can't remember what I don't know the name. Okay. It's got a big word. It's important. It's like, you know, it sits on tables like this. It's a book, and it's to do with autism and diagnosis and things like that. I was diagnosed 10 years ago, and I was very unhappy about it. I was like, I can't be. How dare you? Because my brother's autistic, and I'm his carer, so his needs are a lot. He's got a lot more needs than I do. He's got autism and learning disabilities. I've got learning difficulties, and I think I've found a good place in my life where I don't need to challenge those difficulties as much. So therefore, I don't think it shines through as much, or maybe it does. Maybe I've just found a way. I think it's a way of managing it. I've found a way of managing my brain that works for me. You know, I don't have an office job. I don't work in Tesco's. I don't do anything that really. I work with the public, but on my terms, I'll stand and sing for you. But I'm not going to tell you where like the rice is, because I don't know. You know, and I'm never going to know. I was getting that after the surgery. Someone recommended a V pillow. As if I'd ever heard of that. And they said, oh, you get them at Dunelm. Okay, so I went to Dunelm and I seen this woman and I said, hi, I'm looking for the V pillow. And she brought these two and stuff. This one's 6 inches bigger than that one. I was like, you really know these pillows, don't you? I said, that's amazing. She went, oh, you need to start this job. I'm like, you need to know everything. I'm like, this is why I could not. Someone would come and ask me a pillow. I'm like, oh, that's nice. What's it for? You know, and just ask them. And then she knew about the pillowcases. I didn't know you could get a V-shaped pillowcase. That's ridiculous. You know, I would have just went home and wrapped it with something, you know, and go, that's comfortable. And then my point is, actually, I can't remember. Yeah, my point was, I avoid the things that challenged me. And I think when my autism has been challenging the most, or being autistic, I think there's a lot of arguments of terms, and you know, I think as somebody who is autistic, you're supposed to know all the terms and the terminology and how to word it, and you know, you don't. You learn everything. I'm always learning, and I'll never stop learning. But I know I'm neurodivergent. I know I have ADHD. I know I've got autism. And yeah, it's one of those things that I think if you're in a place to manage it, then that's a good thing. And for me, I like coming here today. This is fine. It's, you know, it's yourself, and that works for me. There's certain situations where people who know me would be like, "Oh my goodness, are you okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, this is just a bit much for me." And I'm overwhelmed. But I've learnt my own behaviour a lot more. So I think I've talked a lot about unmasking, but I think I've learnt that I'll probably always mask and unmask quite a lot. Because sometimes you walk into a situation with a mask on and it slowly comes off. And I think masking is probably, it makes it sound like you're hiding something or you're pretending to be something, when actually it's just a protection shield. It's like, right, come in. Sometimes I'll be really humorous and just be quick-witted and just start making all these jokes to protect, I don't know what I'm trying to protect. I'm protecting me. But I think the stronger I get, the thing I'm trying to protect is stronger than any of the masks I put on. Yeah, I've got loads of material to write songs about, see?
Yeah, you do. You do. So I think that will segue into speaking about what we actually came for. You know, we could sit here and speak all day what we like. It's crazy, isn't it? I'm just totally.
We should go for coffee more often.
Yeah, we definitely should. Would we start there for hours? You know?
I know, just get a camera just in case.
But we'll segue into like going back to what we're here for, just talking about like queer representation in the Scottish music industry and the nightlife industry. So I just want to talk about, like, obviously you're speaking about being neurodivergent and being transgender. Like, is there any spaces in Glasgow that people could be, or in Scotland that people could be, that you could speak about or people could be aware of, that is safe spaces for people to go and enjoy nightlife, that is maybe for neurodivergent people, that is more, what's the word? Like
sensory appealing?
Sensory appealing.
I wouldn't say yes or no. I think, as I said, it's to do with your individual capabilities. You know, it's hard from my point of view because I'm the performer, so I'm going in with a work head on what my work head is. I don't often actually go out as just a party goer. And I've been like that my whole life. You know, as I said about drumming and all those bands, I very rarely actually went out because I was at such a young age that I wasn't allowed to drink. And I got to a point that when I was allowed to drink, I wasn't really interested because I was so used to not drinking. And also I don't really know what to do with myself. I'm not very good at small talk. I'm good at long talk, but small talk, no. But yeah, someone like, I think Bonjour is a great venue. It's a cooperative. It's very, very retro in a way. But I'd be lying if I said I thought it was like great for sensory. I think sometimes it's too loud, it's too dark. Yeah. It's great that it's not too bright, but there's not a great deal of flashing lights. But sometimes I think, wow, it's when I'm leaving and the DJ takes over, I'm like, okay. But I think as far as a queer space, it's fantastic. It's a very safe space for queer people, particularly trans, non-binary, self-expressive people, as opposed to somewhere like Polo, which would probably be a bit more commercial as a nightclub in a way, but it is great as well. I think there's lots of options in there. I enjoy the space of Polo because you have riding room, and if you want to go and have a little bit of dance floor, you can. If you want to go and sit in a quieter corner, you can. Again, I always think the music's too loud, and that's as a drummer, okay? But it's only because if I'm playing the music, it's a different story, but if I'm not, I'm like, I can't hear anything, I'm raging. Unless I'm making the music, then it must be loud. So yeah, it's a difficult one, but it's hard as a neurodivergent person. I think it's preparing yourself for things, taking your own. I often use the little loop stuff.
Okay, I've seen them. You've heard of them quite a lot. Yeah,
they're okay. Sometimes I think, I struggle mostly. I talk about supermarkets quite a lot. It's such an adult life. I struggle with the sounds in supermarkets more than anything. That big silly trolley that they bring with, it's like a big stacked one, and take it to like the staff bit with the plastic,
and it rattles so loud,
and I'm like, I'm concentrating on like salad here, and there's just that. But if I put those loop things in, I can assure you by another part of the supermarket is too quiet because I'm trying to listen to the person I'm with, so it doesn't really work. Whereas maybe if I was going to Polo as a party goer, then I would pop them in because it's so loud anyway. So yeah, I think things like that I would recommend, but that's people's preference, but just be prepared for. I don't think we're there yet because it's hard to, you can't please everyone. That's the issue. And I do a lot of talks with and about people who are neurodivergent, and it is hard to tick all their boxes but yet feel inclusive in a space where other people might not be struggling with those things. So you don't feel like, oh, this is our special space and we all feel a little bit like outsiders, because I personally, I've always hated that. And I think I did write a poem that was talking about where I feel like I'm on the spectrum, which is, I feel like I sit on the fence of where I can see people who are neurotypical and neurodivergent, and I sit here going, well, I don't feel, okay, the word cool was never, but at school you were like, well, I'm not one of the cool kids, but I don't want to be one of them. And I always felt bad, you know what I mean? But I was like, but they look so much happier than me. There would be like a clique of people that were clearly screaming autistic, right? But they, whether they were or not, but they just had a clique, and they're all got their Pokemon cards and anime, and I'm like, I wish I was that happy, but I couldn't possibly. And there's the cool kids that are all talking about who they fingered in a tent at the weekend, and I'm like, oh, for God's sake. And I'm sitting here like, I'm none of them. I'm just walking about having lunch on my own, sitting in the toilet trying to eat. So I don't know, I never fitted in. And I had this label as well, and I'm going, what do I do with it? Because my ego's far too big to tell them that I've got this diagnosis, because of, and if I tell them, they're like, come and join it. No, I don't want to. So yeah, you end up being a loner. So trying to find a space where it pleases everyone. I don't know, maybe there's other people like me who were diagnosed with something and resented it. I always thought it would make me massively uncool for the rest of my life, and also I thought it would stop me from getting jobs, and then I became an adult and realised I didn't need to go for those jobs. I don't have to. I just don't go to an office, hello, these are all the things I can't do. I'm like, well, just don't do them. But yeah, maybe that's...
As an adult, you've essentially created your own job,
I have kind of created my own. I'm a carer, but it's my job that I am my brother's personal assistant. So I do get paid for that as well, just by literally being his everything in life. I take care of everything to do with my brother. and obviously I've made a career in drag and music, and I do all the things that people don't really hear of, like I'll perform at weddings and stuff like that are just because people ask me, they want me, and then I'm like, it's money,
of course,
it's work. So I've
got
just
to make
made
a coin somewhere as musicians, you know, like you've got to.
I do murals in random
you've
places.
Got to take it, you know.
I do murals.
Murals as well,
I do a lot of painting. There's a little pub that in Ayrshire that I've painted all the walls in it. I feel it's very underappreciated because the type of people that go in probably don't.
Ayrshire, that's where I'm from. I'm from Ayrshire.
Kilmarnock.
And Kilmarnock, I'm from East Ayrshire as well.
It's a little place called O'Shannon's, actually.
Right, okay, yeah.
And the artwork is obviously amazing, but I don't know if it's the vibe. You know, like you're looking and you're like, this is not appreciated. But I go in sometimes and I go, that's great, and then leave immediately. But I'll still do things for them. They've given me some wood away they want them painted at the. So there's a lot of things I'm always doing that I'm not very good. I think people think I'm good at social media, but I think I'm terrible at it. I'll put things up and then I run away for about 3 weeks.
Right,
because
I would look at your social media and think you're really good at social media.
I panic because I put so much sometimes, not all the time, but I often put so much into a post. I want to make a point, or I want to explain what I'm posting, because it's not usually just a throwaway look. There's often a point of view, as they'll say, or what have I done this for? Or I'm talking about something is massively honest about my surgery or something like that, or being neurodivergent. There's a point to be had, and it takes a lot of like mental energy out that I do struggle to keep up with comments, whether they're good, bad, or sometimes you'll get a bad one. You put a lot of energy into like how can I have one up on taking this in a good way and being the bigger man, and then be nice to everyone who's scared. Looking great, thanks. And how do I say thanks in different ways without looking like I've just copied and pasted? It's too much.
It's too much.
I can't handle it.
I can't handle it either.
So that's how I can't believe I've got there from a simple question like, is there neurodivergent queer spaces? There should be more. I think that's the bottom line. There should be more. There should be more options. There should be maybe places that have nights that are so if you've heard of Flip Out. Random. It's nothing
to do.
It's a trampoline in place. Yeah. I've only been a couple of times. Only a few. Okay, we'll let it bounce. So there, I think it's on a Thursday, they have a sensory evening that's designed. The music's down a bit, the lights aren't as insane, and it's aimed at people who are perhaps autistic or neurodivergent and just need, but where they may have once had their ear defenders on, they can take them off and have a bounce without, and it's quieter. And they used to, before COVID, like COVID just removes things. Back to the supermarkets. Tesco did have on a Thursday, they like their Thursdays as neurodivergence, that's the day. Neurodivergent sort of, it was called like the quiet aisle or something. It was an aisle where you could go and they just allowed a bit more time. No one's going to stress you and start scanning at a speed and you're trying to get it in your bag for life. And the music, they would turn the music down and things like that. Not like I've found the music in Tesco that invasive, but still. So there is places that do try and adjust their norm to adjust for people like me. And perhaps if places did a bit more of that, but I think it's hard when you're breaking into somewhere that has its own success, somewhere like Polo. I can't imagine them going, all right, we're just going to have like a quiet Thursday now. But how would that, and because where's all the punters going to go? Musically,
sonically, and visually, how would that look in a nightclub? I mean, I know that they do like, not the same thing, but they do, lots of venues now do like sober nights where they don't sell alcohol. How could they implement a night that would be just for neurodivergent people that come in where the music is lower, it's,
I think they could do that.
How would that work though? Like how would...
that's what I'm saying. As a business point of view, I think it's really difficult to know how that would work.
Should it be neurodivergent artists that's only playing at it, like to understand, because somebody that's not neurodivergent, unless they have done like training or anything
I think it really
they
helps.
would never know how to, what what decibels things should be at. Do you know what I mean? Like,
neither would I.
Quite
It's
a difficult thing to
decibels,
navigate.
what's
You know?
that?
Just the sound level. Like,
I know, I'm joking. I'm going to never heard of it. Decibels.
You know, like, how...
That sounds like a great drag name, though. My name's Decibel. I know. It's my alter ego. It is a difficult one. I think it would have to be tested. It would have to be tried and tested a good few times. I think there is nights in places. Well, they've got their student nights, haven't they? Which I'm sure are very successful some of the time, but maybe quiet on other time. I only know that because there's been cancellations as such, and they've got me in on a night, and it's like it was something called Lollipop Wednesday. And I felt older than I have ever felt in my life.
I can't.
Like, where are all these children?
Now, like, whenever I go to Polo, and if I go midweek, I literally just feel like
Granddad's here.
Yeah,
that's me. And I'm like, oh no, I can't.
You know?
And the last time I did it, I remember looking at my set and thinking, no, skip. Can't do that song. They won't know it. They're like, I think my granny likes this number. I'm like, oh dear.
I know, Gen Z, they're another kettle of fish, aren't they? Like,
exactly. But yeah, there is nights in places such as that are quieter, and I'm sure across the board there is plenty of venues that have their quieter nights, and perhaps they're a night that they could try and change their narrative and make it a bit more appealing to an audience that are, I'd hate to say underrepresented, because I think we are represented, but it's not always successful. It's not always positive. But yeah, creating a night that, definitely there's plenty of neurodivergent artists that could be performing, DJs, and getting people in for their own opinions on lighting. What do you struggle with? Not taking a poll, that'd be ridiculous, but smoother, like instead of having your rapid light changes, it might be a lot of people having a more flow. I don't know if that's possible. I don't know anything about lighting. I wish I did, but I think that could be possible. I don't see why it couldn't.
Just to make it more safer, inclusive,
just a more gentle environment, and having, there's, I don't know, there's just certain times you go into a place and you think this is too loud, and I don't think it's necessary. I think it can be turned down, and just having areas that perhaps wouldn't have music. Like I said about, or if it's music, it's really, really low key. So as I said, like somewhere like Pola's got so many different rooms. If they've got their nightclub space, then people know that they're going to go and dance. Don't go down there and then complain that the dance music's on. There's maybe that Riding Room could have really chill music, so you can just go and talk to your friends. I think sometimes that's a difficult thing. People don't have enough room to talk because you're shouting over each other, and by the end of it, you can be like, "That's it. I'm too sensitive. You go home with a ringing in your ears."
Yeah.
So I think to remove that, it's really simple. I don't think you're asking really that much of people, other than there might be some. You can't police it though. You can't come to. Sorry, you look far too neurotypical to come here tonight. Do you know what I mean?
No, you could never. That's not a thing
no, those shoes don't look very autistic of you. That's a very normal walk. What are you doing? So no, it's things like that. I think you have to be careful that you're not creating another divide. It's trying to integrate it where you would, like I said, call it a chilled night or quiet night. It doesn't have to be chilled, because people with ADHD maybe don't want chilled, but they maybe just don't want as loud. I don't know. I can't speak for them. But I think it wouldn't be hard to have an alternative night where this is it's a safe space night. And if you're not looking for that, if you're looking for like, I'm not here to make friends, go and do it on Thursday, okay? Leave it another night. Come back on Saturday where it's like sinners night, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But just have a night where it's like people are like, no, actually I'm here to hang out with my friends.
I think it could be quite a successful thing. I think like there's definitely not anything really.
I'm not asking for something mad.
Nightlife scene where it's like an adult night where you go to a nightclub and people, because at the end of the day, like, people don't want to go and sit in cafes at 9 o'clock at night. Some days you do. Some nights of the week you're like that. I could go out, but I don't want to go seriously.
I don't want folk all hitting on me all night. I don't want to
go to a pub
with
lots of old men. Like that happens. Like when I live in a local village, so it's like I don't want to go and hang about there. So you know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's a joy in it sometimes, but other times I'm like that. No. No, I think a night like that, maybe something in Glasgow where people could go and just like sit and chill till like 12 o'clock at night and not have the fear of the cafe shutting or the pub shutting too early,
Definitely. I think
something interesting.
I do like space. I like to be able to wander. I hate being confined to one space. And I think that's maybe where I don't feel as comfortable in somewhere like Bonjour as I probably should. It should tick all my boxes, but I get to a point where I'm like, it's too dark in here, and I feel like if I'm
small as well,
I like to just wander off sometimes and just have my own time. And that's why I have enjoyed going to places like Polo, but there is some nights I'm like, it's just too much for me. Like I don't always pull on, oh, it's too much for me because I'm autistic, too much for me because I'm me. I think I look at it as an individual point all the time, and I'll go downstairs and I think, it's also, I don't like the music. I might go, this isn't the music I want to listen to tonight. It's not, I think it's, sometimes you can go out and have every intention of having a good time, but sometimes good times happen by accident. But sometimes on the few occasions that I have, or maybe I've finished a gig early and I've got some childcare. Okay, let's go out and enjoy it. And you're sitting there. I'm forcing myself for the next hour, and I'm going. Do you know what? I just want to go home. And I'll put on the music that I like. I don't know if that's an age thing. I fear that it is.
I'm like that as well. Sometimes I just want to leave, and I do like that. I don't know what they call it. It changes all the time, like a French exit. Like when I'm in a nightclub now, like I just disappear.
Gone.
I just disappear. I don't even tell people anymore because I'm not being asked to stay.
No, it's something
I hit a point and I'm like, that music's too loud. I do not want to dance anymore.
Other people are out. See, when other people are too drunk, because I don't get drunk. I may have a drink, but because I'm not teetotal, so I just prefer not to. I just don't bother with it. But if I have a drink, you're never going to see me drunk or there's Ziggy stumbling out. Never. It's never happened. It's never going to. I'm too poor. But yeah, it's like when other people around you are just like, I'm like, you're hanging on me now. Like, move. That's when I feel like. So you can't create a night in a nightclub and remove annoying people. I think that's the difficulty about neurodivergence. I generally don't. I love people, but I can't stand them at the same time. I like you, I respect you, but stop touching my hair. Do you know what I mean? Oh, I like your tattoos. Can I see them? I'm like, well, you're already made friends with them. So it's hard to. I think people have to read their own boundaries, and I've tried to stop having expectations of having a good night. I think that's what lets me down when I'm going, this is going to be great. Same was when I went to Berlin, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and I'm like, no, obviously I'm not. I think if I go in with very low expectations to things, so I can't be disappointed. A very miserable outlook in life sometimes. Very positive, but I'm like, if I think this is going to be terrible, I'm going to be pleasantly surprised. That's my motto.
So I just want to kind of move into talking about more your work within your work as a drummer. So how did that all start? How did that pan out for you? You said obviously you had toured and stuff as a drummer. What was that like being in a band? So for me, just before you go into it, like obviously your name's Ziggi Battles. It comes from David Bowie
initially,
as well,
although the spelling's different. Ziggi. No Y. Always say no Y.
So for me, Ziggy Stardust is my biggest inspiration in life.
As
out of every artist that's ever came in any alter ego or whatever an artist has had, I would say Ziggy Stardust. I was in glam rock bands for years, so like performed lots of these songs, like, and I think for me, like that era for Davey, God rest his soul or whatever, like
Davey B.
that was his best era for me. Ziggy Stardust, it was unbelievable, the performance of it, like the idea that somebody had fell from space to I think
that's when it was his biggest start off, like he came into his own there to create this
imagery as well. Like for me, it was just so beautiful. Like it doesn't get any better. I think like the music video for Life in Mars, like I remember seeing that when I was really young, and for me that those blues and the ginger hair as a ginger person, that was just like life changing.
I didn't even make the connection. I was like, it must be nice for ginger.
Ginger
you're
class,
ginger, I forgot.
So like it was just an iconic moment. The makeup in it was just unbelievable for me. The musicality of it, like unreal. But just talk us through how you got into the bands.
So drumming. So I started drumming when I was about 11 or 12, through no influence of anybody else around me. I didn't grow up in one of those families where there was like loads of guitars and that lying around. But I don't think you can't fight it if it's in you. And I've always. I think using the term Tourette's is difficult because I do feel that these things can come and go, and I don't know enough about it. I've not got a diagnosis, but there has been lots of periods in my life where I am really struggling with tics, and it's a constant. But the one that always comes is the tapping and the drumming. But again, I'm very relaxed and all's good. So it tends to be a nervous thing. And I used to always have rings on my thumb, and if I was holding a trolley, again back to the supermarket, it would be the noise. I remember the first time I didn't have them on, and just how scared I was. So drumming and rhythm and beats was always my go-to for comfort. And I remember asking my parents at the time, could I get a drum kit? And the shock on their face of, God, a drum kit. No one's happy with that request.
All parents are like, they fear the request.
But I was convinced, no, I'm going to be good. I said, I know what I'm doing. And they're like, right, okay. So they got me an electric drum kit. I remember being slightly disappointed at the time, but it was fine. That's how I started with an electric drum. I could plug it in, and they were amazed. And so was I. Looking back, I'm amazed. At the time, no, I was like, well, I knew that I was great. Like, well, I wasn't like started. I knew how to hold a beat, and I had never been taught. So because I hadn't started secondary school yet, had never seen a drum kit. Oh, sorry. No, didn't know that. What I mean is I'd never actually played a drum kit. I just knew that I could do it. Like, I just was convinced. You know, I would tap along to every song. I was just obsessed with music. I definitely listened to a lot more music back then than I do now. I feel like social media has really stole my time more than anything. I used to spend a lot of time listening to music, and it's taken that. It's not taking my love, it's just taking my time.
Seeking new music out as well. I spent a lot of time in my younger years like constantly seeking new music out, and I feel like social media's kind of stopped that a bit.
I think there's so much music as well. It's hard to absorb it all. But yeah, same for me. You know, Bowie was a big starting point. The first image that I had of him was watching the Old Grey Whistle Test, and he was singing Oh You Pretty Things, which I've got tattooed on my shoulder, as I should. And I remember just being like, oh my God, like, what is this creature? Because again, that was, to me, I didn't know what the word androgyny meant, but I liked that, is that a boy or a girl? And I've lived by that for the, I will be this. You'll never know. How should you? Why should you? And I remember thinking, he's beautiful and handsome all in one, and just like the outfit was insane, and I needed to know more about that person. And Mum was like, well, his name is David Bowie, but he, you know, it's like, he has this alter ego called Ziggy, and that's where your name's come from. Oh, okay. So I needed to go and check that out, and then I went onto my Mark Bolan and things, and that's why I couldn't believe it when you said you did glam rock, because all I ever wanted was to start a glam rock band, and I could never get people to do it. It was always people who had done it from like when it, you know, from the 70s, and they're like aging, and I'm like, wow, okay, so I'm always going to be that, like the youngster amongst all these old guys that like look like they're hanging on to that mullet from the 80s, you know, which has come back round. Good for them. I knew it would one day. But I just started drumming for my own pleasure. That was, I'd come in from school, bag off. I remember my bag just being slumped right by my drum kit, because it was the desperation to come in and get the whole day away. And yeah, but I this is terrible to say. My child should not listen, or maybe she should, go on it. When I was to do my exam at the end of my time in secondary school, I went in to do my drum exam, and they give you a little silly little track to, you know, a little click track with some music taking you to play, and I just played my heart out. And I thought, that was very, very good. Battles, that was not what you were to play, that's not what was on the sheet. I'm like, no, it was better.
I love that.
I played what came from here, and you can't teach that. And they're like, F, and I'm like, F for effing amazing. No, it wasn't F. I don't know. I don't like the music thing. I don't even remember looking. I don't know what happened to me. I was dead when I was at school. I needed to. I thought I was a bit of a goody two shoes. I just didn't want to break any rules and things like that. I'm not really sure why. But when it came to like my last year, I think I was just like, I felt like I'd been betrayed. The school wasn't built for someone like me. It didn't support. Didn't want somebody who was artistically creative. That wasn't, they were never going to put you up here unless you were academically great. And I wasn't academically great, but I was the best sportsman there. And I threw javelin for the school. I played the drums, I was the best artist, you know, like things like that. I'd get all the stars, but you'd never get a platform for that unless you were like just people who had done great in maths and English their whole life, and they just fitted that. And I think I was too out there, and I felt betrayed by that. That I was like, do you know, I had the skills back, but now I don't. So when it came to like music, I was like, I'm just playing the music I want to play. And the school didn't like that. I remember them being really cross because they wanted me to play so I could maybe join the school band and that. I just thought the music was shite, so I don't want to play it. And I guess that's when the rebellion started to happen. But I would have been, you know, and then I left. I didn't actually stay till 6th year. So I moved to a place called Harrogate, which is in North Yorkshire. And I studied art for a year. And I didn't like that either because I thought I was going to go to a place where I would have found people around me that were amazing musicians, artists, and I'd be really, really inspired by their abilities, and it would push me, and it didn't. I thought they had a lot of Pritt sticks and cutting out paper, and I'm going, what? I'm making mad sculptures, going, where's the real artists at? So I was like, no, I don't need a bit of paper to tell me I'm an artist. I am an artist. So I got my diploma or whatever it was. I was like, that's great. And they're like, well, you obviously be attending next year. I'm like, no, I'm going to run away with the band. So I'm like, yeah, I didn't need I think I don't feel like I need the validation for things. Maybe that's why I didn't carry on with my studies. And I started up a little jam night, or I might have taken over one. I did take over a jam night from somebody else, and then I'd started another. And it's a competitive environment as the musician community. Yeah, I think any community is. But this small town Harrogate had its own clique, and they'd played there for years. And you'd go to a jam night, and it really wasn't a jam night. It was their night to play about. You'd try and get up, and it'd be like, and you're like, oh, sharpen, take a breath. Oh, not got time for me. I've been here from like the beginning, and it's like, now I will say it, like offending myself right now, but I'm young girl on the drums. Don't know about that. And I'm going, I am a very good drummer. And I had to convince my way in. And then I did. And then I would get booked. So I did. Perseverance was it. I was very young. And yeah, I didn't know what I was. So gender didn't come into it other than they seen me as a young lass. Oh, no, young lass, we've got old man here who's been playing the drums, and he's the house drummer, so we'll just keep him. And I'm like, I've brought my own sticks. I've got a drum key on my keys as well. I'm like, thinking I'm cool. But eventually I got in, and there was an amazing musician and artist called Paul Middleton, and he really seen a lot in me. He played on the Old Great Whistle Test as well with a band called Wally. And yeah, he really helped me, I guess, get a little bit of respect from the other musicians. But then I seen a band called Natural Rhythm that came to play in the local bar that I would perform at called the Blues Bar. And they were a ska and reggae band. And I remember just the joy that this band brought. I was so used to like the rock and the blues that all these other bands were playing, and playing songs that I wasn't massively keen on, but I was just happy that I was finally getting to perform with all these other people. And then these came like, hey, dig that. I'm going, I want to be in that band. Yeah. And a few months later, I'd seen that they were looking for a drummer. There was something, their drummer was a nurse, so he couldn't continue committing to the band, and I went, I'll do that. Never played ska in my life. Completely different drumming style. It's totally upside down from your like 1, 2, 3, 4. You're playing in the offbeat. I'm like, within what? And they're like, yeah, we can come and have a rehearsal with us in a week. I'm like, right, okay. I just sat at the drums for a week going, shit, I've said yes. I've said I'm going to do something I've never done in my life. And I did it, and they had me in. And I think I what's it called, rustling a few feathers in the band. They were all of like Jamaican descent, and here I was, this young white passing chick. And a couple of band members weren't really happy about it, but they had a little reshuffle of their other band members, and this band had been going on for about 25 years before I joined it.
Right, okay.
I think it may have been, I don't know how they all looked so young, but they did. But yeah, there I was, and that was great, and a lot of people still know me from those times, which is nice. We played, there's a band called The Beat that I think still perform. Rankin Roger, the front guy, had died a few years ago, so we supported them at like Leeds Brudenell, which is a well-known venue for all sorts of bands, rock, punk, ska. We also played like Lee Thompson's ska orchestra, which is part of Madness. Lee Thompson was of Madness. So some pretty big gigs. And they were, I think that was, I'm going to say Devon, but I might be wrong. Played so many towns and cities in England that I don't remember all the names. It was a mad time before I had a driving licence, and I would just sit in the back of a van illegally, probably rolling a bit of a drum kit. But they were great. They were good times. I
life enjoy a musician in it, like
absolutely. It was a
touring musician anyway, like
definitely. I feel like I did squeeze a lot into my life, and again that all echoes what I was saying about not being a drinker and things. I was literally always working, and people say, "You never been to a festival?" I'm like, "No, I've been, but I was playing." You know, I'm on the stage. I've never had a tent, and I've been like in the same jeans for 3 days and stinking. Like that's never been me. I've always looked great and I've always been on stage. So I've just not had I've had the same experiences but from the different point of view from a lot of people. So that's how that was a very different life, but all I can say is it was a very hetero point of view as well. I wasn't in any queer venues at that point. I didn't mix with queer spaces because it wasn't around me. I think from your musician's point, it's harder to break in. And maybe that's why I didn't find myself till later on in life, because I didn't have a minute to stop and think about it. I was just this person who people thought was a girl, but I had a massive quiff. I looked very like Elvis. I had 2 odd Doc Martens. Well, not the only 2. Like I always had Doc Martens on, and were always odd. That was it. People would be like, "All right, love, got another pair of them at home." I'm like, "You're right." And that was it. That would always be the joke. And all the band would always laugh at me and call me a lesbian. I was never a lesbian. I don't know how. I just apparently look like a lesbian. Thank you very much. And we did. There was only twice that we had actually played at what they called gay bars in Bradford. They were rough.
Oh my God.
But yeah, they were like, "Oh, they'll love you in there, eh? And I'm like, "Why? Because I'm short-haired female drummer." Great, thank you. And yeah, I'd get a lot of stick from the band, but you know, they were like labourers as well, day by day, you know, guitarist by night. So it had that sort of boy humour. I was just one of the lads, and I don't think they ever questioned it. I fitted in. Yeah. And it wasn't until I removed myself from that sort of scene, I moved up here and started doing solo gigs on my own. And it's only in the last, few years that I've put a word to who I am. I've never really changed. So when I actually visited Yorkshire last weekend and bumped into a couple of people and they're like, instantly they're kind of like, like shocked, like, "Oh, how do I talk to you?" And they're like, "Oh, you're just the same." I'm like, "Of course I am. Yeah. I've not changed." And they're like, "Just the I'm like, "Oh, the tits have gone, yeah." That's right, yeah, just and then you get other people, "But they were really nice." I'm like, "That's nice." I'll tell them, I've got them in a bag. Do you know what I mean? What the fuck? I'm sure there's loads of other tits out there you could talk about. But yeah, it's like silly, really. People are so silly, and they think that because they see something on social media must mean you're a completely different human being. And then they meet you in like this time and the penny drop is like, "No, you're the same person." I'm like, "Yeah," and you'll probably forever misgender me in your head of the people you talk to, because I probably won't see you day to day. And until my beard grows properly, you won't see the man that I see in me. But I don't care. Yeah. I'm just the same person. I'm still silly. If they needed a drummer tomorrow and I was free, then I'd pop down and I would do it all again. It was great. Yeah. But I ask my pronouns to be respected. Whether you do it or not is on you. Like, I'm too tired to keep up.
I think I'm not
going to fight this all the time.
Yeah, of course, and there is definitely the conversation there about it'll be a struggle for people that have known you when you identified as a previous gender to then when you do transition, like that. There is a grace period there.
I didn't know I had a choice. I think that was all. I think nobody told me what trans was.
Yeah,
I didn't know. And yeah, I do come from a slightly different generation where I didn't grow up with my phone. and the ability to Google things. So like you said about, Bowie, that era was so androgynous that it was so accepted then, and a lot of the people that will challenge you on the internet are the same people that have literally got all David Bowie's records, and I'm like, sorry, you're
crazy, innit?
You're going, all right, so you mutilate your body. I'm like, how rude. And you say you're a man, but then you wear makeup. I'm like, what's that in the background? Is that Ziggy Stardust?
Yeah.
Sorry, he's full of makeup. You're trying to argue with me that men can't wear makeup, but it's okay for a cis guy to wear makeup, but you're going to argue that if a trans guy wears makeup, then you must still be a woman. It's so confusing for them. It's not confusing for me, but it's. I actually don't have the arguments half the time.
They overcomplicate things for absolutely.
You're making this
no
very, very
reason.
difficult.
Yeah.
I'm like, just let people be themselves.
Yeah.
And then people get really cross about. I don't know, like, it's usually other people tell me stories about how, this person flipped up because of the pronouns, and I'm going, I think if somebody was just aggressively, continuously trying to taunt me with the wrong pronouns, would I be annoyed?
Yeah.
And I think I always politely correct people. Or a lot of the time I just don't. If I can't see, I can't be bothered. Like if it's in a supermarket and it is literally somebody's like, oh yeah, this lady's just wanting to return something, and I'm like, where it must be me. I'm the lady. I'm like, me as a lady.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm such a lady. I just think it's funny. I'm like, I love how wrong they are, but at the same time, I get it. It's and it's not a. Actually, no, it's not that I do get it, but I get that we've lived in a life where we've like gone like that about things, and people who are trans, they didn't even know what they were. If I didn't know what trans was a few years ago, how can I expect the rest of the world to understand me at this point in time? But like you'll see all the time, we've always been here, okay, always, and we're here now. We're not going anywhere. But it doesn't make it easier for people to get it. It doesn't make it easier for. To make your life, and I think it's just you have to find your inner strength, because it's fucking hard work, I must say. It's not easy to be trans. It's not always trans joy, although I always try and express
the conversation that's happening
it's disgusting
right now. It's scary.
It's terrifying. That's what I'd says to a friend the other day, that I think they just thought I was maybe being a wee bit quiet online, and I'm like, because I don't like going online sometimes. I don't want to hear the nasty things because I can't believe them. When I came out, it wasn't like this. When I came out, I think I felt like I had to tell people around me what it was. They didn't understand it. And I'm like, well, I've just been educating myself on terminology. And I said, this is what I've been trying to find. I get it now. And I'd educate my smaller circle, I suppose. And I lost friends, and that's fine. I don't want to have friends that don't get it. Do you know what I mean? I don't want friends that are bigoted or racist or homophobic or queerphobic. I don't want those kind of people around me. But now I think, oh my God, if I hadn't come out then, I'd be terrified to come out now, because it's like the media makes out that to be trans you must be mentally unstable, although I don't know, am I? Have I ever been? It's difficult. It's not very nice. I think like the world makes us sound like we're evil and that we're trying to do bad things to kids and things like that. I don't get it.
When it's, do you know what? I just think like there's a conversation that's happening right now that's quite scary, and it's the same rhetoric that was spun for gay people and like the 80s and stuff like that.
Yeah, we're going back.
We're going, yeah.
And the same for people of colour. And we've been here before. We've been here with Jewish people.
Yeah. And it's the same people that's having the conversation again. It's the same generation that is perpetrating this conversation again, because younger people's not doing this. There's a very minority of young people that...
If the young people are doing it, it's because they probably live in a village and they're very village mentality where their parents are like...
Told them this, and also they have to vote for this, so they all do the exact same thing that their parents
it was like when I was at school, I remember there was this boy that he had a real issue with Catholics, and I remember thinking, that's a bit of my generation, and I'm like, but your dad's like that, so that's why but generally we don't talk about like, Catholics, like, well, my family are, I'm certainly not religious, but I know people in my family are Catholic, who now take nothing to do with me, so I love that I had their back for so long. But yeah, it's just, I feel like it's who you're, so that's why I bring my child up in a way where I'll let her be herself. Sometimes she talks about pronouns. She's only 5, and people would see that, the wrong people would see that as grooming, the right people would see that as educating from a young age. Yeah. If Mitzi goes to meet somebody, if I say, oh, we're going to meet a friend today, and she's like, are they he, she, or them? I think that's amazing. If you get that from the age of 5, that I want to get it right, and when she gets it wrong, you see her trying to correct herself, and she doesn't do it in a way where she feels uncomfortable or pressured. I've just taught her from a young age.
You're just installing like empathy and compassion into her for a young
just
age.
Understand people. Like, don't
have empathy for other people. If somebody's pronouns are different from another person's, or they identify a different way.
But I think it's a good idea to introduce kids at a young age about simple things. It's not sexualising children.
Absolutely not. Just telling somebody's pronouns isn't sexualising somebody.
You teach your kids how to ask somebody's name. If you can say, when you meet somebody, say, hi, how are you, what's your name? You know, if you want to meet somebody, there's no harm in asking someone's pronouns. It's not offensive. If you're going to take offence to something, such a simple question like, what are your pronouns? Oh, fucking pronouns. And you're like, sorry, I don't...
You need to go and have a word with yourself if that's
triggering you, then there's issues. And I think that's really all we're talking about, is making it more of an open conversation in schools. It's not about teaching kids about things. I think just being able to openly discuss things is a very different word. Saying teaching makes it sound like, today we're going to talk about transsexual people. Like,
it doesn't happen like that. That's not what's happening.
No, that's never happened before, and I don't think this is ever going to happen. But there's just this ban like cancelling us, and it does feel a bit of a trans genocide going on at the moment. And and when people say, well, that's in America, I'm like, yeah, it's scarily close. It's not that far. And if it's happening there, it can happen here. And it terrifies me. Yeah. It terrifies me for someone like my child as well, who isn't trans themselves, but has trans parents. That makes people feel like excluded. It's not just about making... I think people think, oh, we're going to make our kids trans. I'm like, no, we might just make people feel less lonely and less excluded. Why does Mitzi think she's got 2 dads and one's trans? Why does that... Like, she must think, well, there's nobody else like me. But if we talk about it, then it's not just like we open a book and it's like, oh, Henry has a mum and dad. You know what I mean? Who were both born that way. Like, it's just not... I don't know. I think just making LGBTQ conversations in schools just makes other children feel safe. Yeah. I think it's missing, and I'll always be pro it. I think it's whether it's the media or other people who translate it differently are the ones that make it seem sinister, as if we're coming in and trying to, like I've always said, when they say if you talk about it, they're going to think that it's okay, and you go, well, 1, it is okay, and 2, myself and yourself, I'm sure, having to watch primarily heterosexual things on the TV did not make me a straight heterosexual.
Indoctrinate me into that, you know.
I'm not because look at me, I'm a role model cis hetero person here, you know. So you'll be whoever you're going to be. It doesn't matter what you talk about. You know, I watched Fireman Sam as a kid. I've never put out a fire in my life. You know what I mean? So you can't influence, but you can certainly educate. And I think people forget that they think if they're worried their kids are going to be so influenced. Let's just say, you know, my child's been taken to the church recently to do like the Easter service, and I'm going, why? I don't discuss that, and I don't. She's coming in going like, God is the greatest. I'm like, is he? Is she? I don't know. And you're asking me questions that I don't feel that I can answer. So turn it on its head and go, why are we still teaching something that to me is so outdated, and it goes against everything that we really talk about today? Anyway, that's for another day.
So we're coming to the end of the episode, so I just want to wind it up a little bit and just ask kind of a final question. Is there anything that you can think of for queer identifying artists, musicians in the Scottish music industry? Is there anything that you can recommend or anything that you can suggest? Is there better ways of going about things? Is there anybody that you know right now that is paving the way for people, or other than yourself?
Other than me? Well, it's something that I often talk about at a gig if I'm introducing my own music and I'm trying to get people to go and buy it, as they should. And is that I don't really have other trans men, and I think I've come across some more online, again, social media, across people that are other musicians. But growing up, no, I've not gone, oh, there's a trans man in the charts right now, or a trans woman. Of course, we've got Unholy, but generally it's very few and far between. But it's trying to find a balance between standing up and being proud of the identity that you are, but also just being a person in yourself and being taken seriously as an artist. It's trying to find a balance, and that's why on my profile, my pronouns are there, but I don't go, well, I'm a trans man, because to me on Instagram, say, it wasn't important to declare that. I don't feel like I have to. It's not, hi, this is my introduction, unless somebody like yourself, you've got me on to talk about something to do primarily on being a queer person and what makes me queer. Well, I'm trans, and I'm pansexual by default. I don't think I really stand by any title. It's just, well, I like people, and what happens. So by default, it's pansexual, I suppose. But I don't wear it like a big, badge. And it's the same in music. I think Man Like Me was the pivotal moment for me to release a song that was talking about my journey. But again, I don't go, I'm a trans man. And I don't actually say I was a girl. I just says like I'm talking about, it's about wording things in a way that you can say a lot without saying your exact meaning. But I also feel love, I feel sadness, I feel loneliness, I feel excitement, and I like to write things based on that. I've got a lot of history that I'd like to write about. I've got a lot of hurt that I'd like to address, and a lot of positivity that I'd like to address as well. And none of those things actually point at being queer, and that's all right as well. You represent by simply being yourself, as opposed to having to write words that are an anthem, because sometimes I feel I need to write an anthem for trans men to be like, oh, this is my song, do you know what I mean? Which is great, I love if you can do that, but it's also nice to write a song that anyone could listen to and go, that's a really good song, and maybe that way you can lure in the people that hate us so much, because they'll go, that's a good tune.
But I think the best anthems come from people writing about themselves, but trying to achieve this thing, just writing a song to identify or
some of the biggest gay hits, they don't say I'm gay and I'm fabulous, do you know what I mean? But
absolutely, it's just about people writing about their own life experience, and then
we can only speak of Small Town Boy and most Pet Shop Boys songs that you'll listen to and you think this is great, and I think if you've been there and you know it, you understand it more. But how many cis het guys love a bit of Pet Shop Boys? They'll smack a gay guy in a bar in a second, and you go, what? Like, Western boys, Western girls, you're like, right, okay. The hypocrites are everywhere, but play on that. Play on the hypocrites, because if you write a good tune, it's hard to get someone to not tap their feet to it, but it's hard. I don't know if my advice goes a long way. All I'll ever project is being myself, and hopefully that can make other people. I think it's the feedback I get the most, as far as positive feedback goes, is that if somebody will say to me, you really helped me want to be myself more, or to express myself more, and that makes me really happy. If somebody says something like that, I think I've done something good. I don't think there's more I could ask. If somebody feels that they could express I think a lot of people say express their gender, and I don't know. Maybe I don't even understand that term, because I'm just expressing me. I think if you would just keep removing the word gender from everything, just express yourself, go and be you. And if somebody can feel a bit more like that after seeing me at a show or listening to a piece of my music, then great. But I think my biggest aim is to get some more music that's available for people to buy, and honour some of as my voice changes. My next project is to try and make, it's probably a secret, I shouldn't even do this. I want to have a song that I can sing with my future self, and re-sing songs with my old self as my voice changes in my development.
Really cool. That's a really cool concept.
And I don't want anyone out there stealing that idea. How dare they?
They won't. You have done it.
They've done it. I'll go and sing it now.
So I think that's a really nice note to end on, is just authentically be yourself. That's the whole basis of this podcast, was to get queer artists on and just allow them to have a candid conversation with me about what it's like working in the music industry as a queer artist. And I think
it's hard. I'm a DIY artist, so I'm not. I don't have a manager or an agent. I never have, actually. And that's not true. I did have a manager for 1 year, and it was terrible. It was going to be for 3, but I was very adamant that I only wanted to sign a contract for 1 year. And I made no money that year. They took everything. So that was great. But I think DIY artists is a lot more popular these days. I think a lot of people are just doing it off their own back, because it's not easy. It's hard work. But
financially it's the best thing you can do for yourself.
And
if you can
I feel it's
sustain
safer
yourself.
as well.
Yeah.
I think it's just that there could be more advice out there. I'd like to know more people, like even speaking to people like yourself and creating more contacts. I think sometimes I can live in my own little bubble and I try and be self-sufficient as possible, that I end up never asking for help, and sometimes that can slow my production down a little bit. I think I just need to go, hey, does somebody know this person? And just asking, because I hate asking for help.
Yeah, but that's a collaboration, you know, and it took me a long time to understand that because I'm very somebody that likes perfection and I like everything to look, and I'm all about visuals that communicate with audio, and I struggled a long time handing anything over to anybody because I was like, no, I need to do it. It needs to be me, because
I'm really bad for that. You know? I design all my artwork. I design I play all the instruments in all my songs. I write all the songs. Everything is me.
It's a collaboration, and see when you.
And I need to reach out. I've actually never collaborated with anyone, and I want to change that.
Maybe we could collaborate. Maybe we should.
I would love that. See, when as soon as you mentioned that glam rock thing, and I'm just like. As long as the attire is completely glam, that's it. It has to be absolutely ridiculous.
I still got all my old outfits. I used to wear like leather jackets that had like spiked up to here, and my 12-inch platforms. I could put them in the archive now, you know, in the archive, which is just a cupboard in my house.
We should totally do that. Bring glam rock back.
Yeah.
If there was ever a thing such as gender expression, it was then. Yeah.
So we'll just wind it up there. And we'll just finish up. Is there anything would you like to plug yourself? Where can people find you? What you doing next? Tell us about Eccentrix.
I don't have a date for my next Eccentrix show. I won't be doing it this month.
But when it's announced, definitely go, because it is amazing.
Yes, the next one will be in May for sure. I've got a few gigs that are always available to find online. My biggest platform, well, when I say my biggest platform, it's one I use the most, which would be Instagram, and that's at Ziggi Battles, ZIGGI BATTLES. And so give that a follow, and that's got a link to Eccentrix, which you'd find. I'm also on TikTok under the same, and on Facebook under the same. There's no underscores or anything in my name. Like, there isn't another Ziggi Battles out there, so it's easy to find. Just spell that first name, then you'll find it.
An individual name. Same as my full name's River Wild.
Exactly.
And that's my legal name as well.
I love.
Nobody else in the world is called that.
No, so there's no hyphens. There's no 01 at the end. It's just Ziggi Battles.
You get your own Gmail account as well.
When people go, I can't find you, I'm like, well, you've spelt it wrong. That's on you, not me. Yeah. But give that a look. There's always new things coming on. I'm always up to something. I'm always creating new looks. I'm always creating new opportunities, and also you might find the odd picture of my cute child, so everyone likes that.
So I just want to lastly just thank you very much for coming on to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm honoured
to have you on here today. I think you just encapsulate everything that I wanted for the podcast, and you're just somebody that's a pioneer in the industry, you know.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Music scene. So just again, thanks very much for coming on.
Thank you.
And thanks for listening to another episode of Beyond the Binary Beats.
I love the name of this show as well. Want a theme tune? I'll make it.